Spanish 1, a study of adjectives. This presentation is designed to help those of you who are still struggling with the understanding of how adjectives work in Spanish sentences. Easiest way to put it is they're chameleons. They change. They take on the characteristics of whatever object or person they are describing. Therefore, adjectives can become plural by changing the last letter or two. Some adjectives can even reflect masculine or feminine characteristics of whatever it is they're describing. Let's talk about number first. That's singular versus plural to the rest of us. Adjectives, like nouns, can become plural in one of two ways. What I'm saying here is the rules that I'm about to share with you work whether you're talking about making a noun or an adjective switch from singular to plural. But for the focus today, adjectives. If you have an adjective that ends with a vowel, then you make it plural just by adding an S. Alto becomes altos. Grande becomes grandes. Bonita becomes bonitas. This doesn't change the meaning of the adjective. It's just the chameleon nature of adjectives that they add this letter because the noun they're describing happens to be a plural thing. Let's continue with that. Sometimes adjectives need a little more help because they might not end with a vowel. If they happen to end with a consonant, you make that word plural by adding es. So, popular becomes populares. Mejor becomes mejores. Normal, normales. Fácil becomes fáciles. Notice that you actually hear that E when you pronounce those words. Normales, fáciles. Now this can cause some spelling problems, and we're going to just give you a brief overview of how you'll do some fixing there. Joven, for example, the word young, will have to add an accent mark over the O, jóvenes. This happens with some nouns and some adjectives when they've already got more than two syllables, and when you add that extra es, you have to put the stress back in its proper location. The other exception is words that end with Z. Feliz, for example, will become felices. And this is because the letter G just cannot stand to be followed by either an E or an I, so it changes itself to a C. Okay, let's have practice with this step. Fill in either the singular or the plural version of these adjectives. On this side, on the left, I have some examples of singular, and over here you would put in the plural. So here are the ones that are missing. What's the singular version of this word, the plural of that, and so on. Take a minute before hit pause, and when you're ready, go ahead and continue play, and I'll show you what the answer should be. Okay, here we go. All right. The other thing that an adjective will do is it will reflect the gender. Now, this is a language concept that we don't have anymore, but we have to learn to employ this idea because the Spanish language does classify all nouns as being either masculine or feminine. Now, it's easy to do when we're talking about people and animals because they already have gender. Most of the time, this is usually shown with an O for the noun version that refers to the male person. And if it isn't an O ending noun, then the male is labeled with a generic version, such as profesor, señor, doctor, estudiante, joven. Usually the female person is then labeled by changing that O to an A. So, with the O ending ones, you get things like muchacha, amiga, hermana. But if the noun in the male form doesn't end with an O, then you've got to either learn the female version or you just get to add an A. Sometimes it doesn't change at all. So, muchacho, the regular rule, becomes muchacha. But profesor and señor and doctor have an additional A that are added. And then, here are some examples that just don't change gender. And then there are the whole category of nouns that don't refer to people at all. But we can use what we learned with gender referring to people to make some general conclusions. Usually, any noun that ends with an O is probably going to be a masculine noun, and any noun that ends with an A will probably be feminine, but not always. You've already learned 2 examples of exceptions. El día, the day, and la mano, the hand. And when a noun doesn't end with either an O or an A, we're just going to have to learn by heart which one it is, masculine or feminine. Now later on we will show you some patterns that will make this a little bit easier. But, bottom line, whenever you're learning a new noun, go ahead and learn el or la in front of it as you study it. That way you'll always know what to do with adjectives to describe that noun. Okay, back to adjectives, which was the point of this. If the adjective has to change singular plural, well then it also has to change to match the gender of the noun it's describing. So if the adjective has to be feminine, change its regular O ending to an A, even if you've already made it plural. And if the adjective doesn't start out ending with an O, usually you can just leave it alone, since it will also work with a feminine noun. This type of adjective is exceptional, and they probably have to be learned separately. Here are some examples. You have the small school. School is a feminine word, so la escuela pequeña. Notice A on the end, A on the end. But, like a good chameleon, when you change it to describing a masculine item, muchacho, that goes back to an O. Small girls. Sorry about that. The small girls. Now we have the word small becoming feminine and plural. Las muchachas pequeñas. The big classes. Well, the word big can only be made plural, so whether it's feminine or masculine, grande will change to grandes. And when it comes to the masculine version, still all you can do is make it plural because it never ended with an O in the first place. The popular man, el señor popular. The popular women, well, popular doesn't end with an O, so all you can do is make it plural, las señoras populares. And then the young friends. The word friend can be masculine or feminine, singular or plural. In this case, I want masculine. That's what that letter M is for. So I give you los amigos, and then the word young can only be made plural, jóvenes. And if I want to change it to the masculine singular friend, el amigo joven. And what if I wanted some girl young friends? It would be las amigas jóvenes. I hope this has helped. Review it as many times as you need and take notes where necessary, because this is a pretty big deal concept-wise. Hasta luego.